Right, our next speaker. Now, Diliana was very concerned that the people in the audience might not be able to comprehend her accent. But I told her that she had nothing to worry about because we had a speaker the following day who we were having to work to put subtitles on his presentation. So, if at any point you don't sort of catch something, then, you know, you can lean across to your neighbour and say, "What did you say? What did he say? Can you translate it?" And you know what? For me, it's wonderful to hear these regional accents. Because 30 years ago, I prided myself that I could tell where somebody was from within 15 miles based on their accent. Today, I couldn't make that claim at all. So I will leave it to you to decide where our next speaker's from. Well, no, maybe I'll give it away in a second. But anyway, Mark Steele, the head of the Geordie Mafia. Is an inventor, an engineer, designer. He works with... Is it your company? Or is it your company?
Well, I'm a director.
I'm a director. He said, I'm a director. Of a company that manufactures heads-up displays or designs head-up displays and particular interest in motorcycling. And so very, very in touch with the inherent dangers of light frequencies and EMF emissions. And I and many others have been concerned for some time about the potential dangers associated with the coming rollout of 5G. And I was looking for a hook, and I was aware of Mark's efforts and great efforts he's been making to get this into the wider consciousness. Succeeded in managing to get mainstream articles in the press a few weeks ago, in the Daily Telegraph, in the Times, in the Daily Mail, the Metro, and the epitome of journalism, the Gateshead, what's it called?
Evening Chronicle.
Evening Chronicle. Which got a reaction, as he will tell you, from the local authority in Gateshead. But the trigger for me, because I tend to sort of hold back until there's something that I feel is a trigger that will actually reach out into the wider community as opposed to just small groups, which is why I held back on fracking until the moratorium was lifted. But if we thought fracking was a risk, then what you're going to hear from our next speaker, from Mark Steele, is that 5G makes fracking look like almost inconsequential. But the trigger for me was the announcement in the British media on Sunday the 18th of March that trees were going to have to be culled around the country because 5G does not work through organic materials, not least trees. Worse, not least trees with foliage, and trees with foliage and raindrops, apparently it completely nulls it. So I went out on March the 19th with a live stream and made the observation that the Sheffield culling of trees was directly related to the contract with Amy and Amy's relationship with Telefonica, who are O2 in this country, who are going to be responsible for rolling out large tracts of 5G. Mark contacted me a couple of days later, and we've had a few conversations since. Mark was my guest on Humanity versus Insanity about 4 weeks ago, yep. And we've had to put subtitles on the bottom of that. But what Mark has to share is very real. With fracking, we've had the opportunity just to keep kicking the can down the road. With 5G, the intention is to roll this out on a global basis in 2020. So it's really important that we discuss this subject, and it's with great delight that I welcome Mark Steele to AV9.
Thanks. Well, I'd like to thank Ian for inviting me down today to talk to you lovely people, and I've met lots of you, and you're absolutely fantastic. I can see humanity is definitely starting to wake up, so I'd give you all selves a nice round of applause. It is absolutely heartening to have had some of the conversations I've had over the last few days. It's absolutely fantastic, because we all sometimes think that we're in this little bubble and we're only talking to ourselves. Well, I really do believe that 5G is going to be our opportunity to do something about the terrible things that are going on. We've watched some absolutely horrendous lectures here in the last couple of days. So anyway, without any further ado, I'm the Chief Technology Officer of a company called Review, and we are an organisation, we're a company. I'm an inventor and I'm a businessman. So I'm not some Luddite, I'm actually a technologist and I'm a businessman. And what really came to light, I actually invented an optical waveguide so that people could see full spectrum light. And we fitted that in the body of a helmet. And it was all based on the premise that optical radiation was a significant hazard, and it was to mitigate that particular risk. And my employment over the last 30 years has all been in research and development projects. So there's a certain pattern to product development. There's a set of standards, there's a set of parameters. What you most certainly don't want to do is build products that make people sick. There's not any money in it, and you wouldn't get very far from a business perspective. So it's all pretty interesting. This that image there, that's the invention. They've been in orange. And what it shows a waveguide. It attenuates the optical radiation hazard. So obviously over distance and some clever little tricks that we do with it, it actually reduces the hazard, so it allows you to see full spectrum. It's never been done before. The military do head-up display systems, but I'll explain in the further imagery about the impact of full spectrum. So we really thought that we'd done something really special. This is a binocular visual system, as you'll see. Your eyes are inextricably linked. So consequently, monocular visual systems, we know there's evidence that they will be very, very problematic to your eyesight. And one of the reasons why a microscope in a laboratory, the very expensive binocular ones, in fact today you actually look at a screen, it's to save people's eyes. Because like I said, this radiation, and it's not the power dependency, it's the frequency of the light. So we built this thing. I was really proud of it, and it took quite a number of years to get the patents to actually be able to develop this product. Obviously, this particular product, it's a motorsports helmet product, and once again, that has a other raft of issues attached to it. Department of Transport accreditations, United Nations ECE 2205. These are all accredited standards that you have to be able to sell products in this particular field. So the designs, the whole idea about how you're going to build something. This waveguide was actually designed and built to act as a crumple zone, because not only did we have to be able to get the imagery there without damaging someone's eyesight, we actually had to take quite a bit of material out of this particular product and replace it with something that could actually limit the risk from, let's say, a crash. So we had to do, it was a pretty difficult project, let's put it like that. In fact, there was a lot of people who said it was impossible. But I'm not one of those that believes that impossible can't happen. If it's in your imagination, and believe there's a lot of people here with a lot of imagination, if it's in your imagination, we can do it. There's nothing you can't do. And it's all party to, there's other things we want to talk about, but let's just take the product development at the moment. That's the real product there. That's the RVSX MSX1. I named it after myself, to be honest, but it was Motorsports X, but it's MS1. It's the world's only fully certified racing helmet with a rear vision system. You see the visor on the back there? That's so you can actually let the light through. It's the only one in the world. I'm really pretty proud of it. And when we first put this product in the marketplace, what I was very, very mindful of was the waveguide. Because what we didn't understand, this was a totally unique manufacturing process, and what we didn't really understand was what the parameters were going to be. So, if all we knew, I mean, we'd done all the theoretical stuff, we'd done all the stuff in the computer modeling, but what we didn't understand was what that would react like in an accident. Because I knew if I could put it into a motorsports helmet, we could put it into a lot of other things. Because this environment's it's an extreme environment, and these motorsports guys come off quite regularly. It's not as if, you know, they have accidents all the time. So these helmets have to work, they have to be safe. And what I was really interested in, we needed at least 5 years of putting these in, because the product life cycle in this particular helmet is about 5 years. Some people keep them for 10, 15. Obviously, there's a lot of degradation in that. Sunlight causes a lot of problems to some of the materials. But what we really wanted to see, because of the unique process, the manufacturing process of the waveguide, I wanted to see what the impact resistivity was, and I also wanted the data on the delamination, because there's a potential for delamination due to some of the energy that's in the photons in light. So we didn't really know that, and we had to actually wait, because I've got some other ideas about how we're going to move this on. However, this business did really well for 2 or 3 years, and we all of a sudden came under this sustained, very, very sophisticated attack. We had distribution groups in Australia, Spain, Italy, France, Canada, USA. The retailers were attacked. The distribution groups were attacked. It was all pretty interesting. I thought, we didn't know exactly who it was at the time, but what we knew was what communications were going dead. This was telecommunications. This wasn't just internet going down and websites being crashed. So we came under this sustained attack, and as it happens, it transpired it was one of the largest technology companies in the world who had reach over the world. And it was a global attack. They attacked websites in countries as far as Australia, Mexico, other parts of the world, all pretty illegal, and there was rogue operators operating in that particular company. I'm not saying it's what they do all the time, but, you know, they just might do. But what it told me was that was a significant value in what we're doing. Now, this just reinforces the point about the known spectrum and what's safe. That's not really safe, and I wouldn't really like to wear that helmet, because you can imagine being fired through a canopy with that on. Would probably put your eye out. Be pretty risky. However, the bit that's really significant, that's a 560 nanometer, roughly, image that it's projecting into his eyes. And it's less biologically active than full spectrum. The military are really interested in this, and I'll come on to it later, because obviously talking about 5G, I'm gonna try and sort of bring you into the reasons why you're getting 5G. So we've got to touch on this, the sort of military aspect, because a lot of the equipment that you see on the streets today is basically off the battlefield. So this bit of equipment, as you can see, it's a 560 nanometers part of the spectrum, and most certainly being risk assessed by the military. Because what they most certainly wouldn't do is put a full spectrum imagery there, because you'd end up damaging your pilot. And some of these pilots are trained for quite a number of years. You definitely don't want to blind them. And that's the reason for that. Now, the attack that we had, obviously I was pretty busy developing this business out. We had lots of other ideas about developing the project. But the attack obviously allowed me to start looking at other products from around the world. Lots of head-up display systems. This one in particular, and the reason I've picked this one is because everybody knows about it. It's pretty interesting. And if you look at the image on the this one here, with that's full spectrum light, I thought it was a bit of genius. I really did. I thought, God, who do these people employ? Google must employ the best in class, best people, because this is absolute genius. And the reason I thought it was genius wasn't the optical radiation. I thought they'd taken care of that. What I thought was a monocular visual system I already knew of, because of the weapon sights business and my experience in that particular field, I knew that monocular visual systems pose a significant risk to humans at the interface. And I thought, how have these guys done it? There's a bit of magic there. And I was thinking about the software, I was thinking about, how had they actually created this bit of genius? Because this was a conundrum. I mean, this is the sort of thing you get a Nobel Prize for, if they had overcome the monocular visual system issue. And then what happened, I spoke to a guy in Tokyo. He purchased one of these devices, and he was actually out in the city, got back to his hotel. He'd had it on for, I think the battery was about 20 minutes at the time. He got back to the hotel, he had a residual image left on his retina. And that told me that not only had they not fixed the optical radiation hazard, they most certainly hadn't fixed the monocular visual hazard. And that would damage a human's interface with technology. So it's pretty interesting. And that wasn't just one story. There was other stories of the same issue. There was a few people mentioned it, and I thought, well, that's bizarre. One of the largest technology companies in the world are going to put products out there that are potentially risky. I can tell you how risky they are, but anyway, they're potentially very, very risky. Not a very good idea. And obviously, we still had lots of time. If you look at this image here, you'll see the focus of the image on the fovea. A human can't visualize anything closer than 200 millimeters. So this is actually a focused image directly on the back of the eye, on the retina. What you're really doing here with the optical radiation, it's a collimated or a focused image. Most light enters a person's eye, it's through a reflection. So if I put that on there, I'm not putting it in your eye. If I shine this laser in your eye, it's actually a salt. It's a class 1 laser, not extremely dangerous, but believe us, it's not good, because it's collimated light, it's straight light. And this is actually a focused light signal. And I was pretty bizarre. In fact, I was appalled. And it wasn't the only one. This wasn't the only product out there. You see a lot of these gaming headsets, focused and pulse modulated light onto people's eyes. And then we started to see a little bit of this. From material sciences perspective, and something I know quite a lot about, because obviously the coatings that we had to put on the waveguide led me down a rabbit hole of understanding coatings and how we could mitigate this particular issue. That looks very uniform. And from material sciences perspective, you're probably looking at something, because of its uniformity, if that had, let's say, some ingress here and some here, because they're all ones where, there's been some damage in the beam splitter, but this particular metallized coating here, that looks very, very uniform, and that looks to me as if it's the frequency of light that's caused that. Now, I wouldn't know, because you'd have to do some pretty expensive experimentation, but that does look suspicious. It's a metallized coating. Just imagine what it's doing to someone's eye. Now, this piece of kit, another interesting thing about it, obviously it's a lens. And one of the things with weapon systems and frequencies, you use lenses to weaponize them. So the microwave radiation off this, I mean, I shouldn't be laughing, it's not funny for the poor people that bought them. This device got an antenna in here. And obviously on more investigation, this is what really because my expertise in this particular field was in the terahertz range. And obviously microwave radiation is a little bit further down the scale. It's not as hazardous. And on looking around the internet, I found an article from a professor in the USA, and he was really concerned about the antenna. There's an antenna in the stem here, and obviously this antenna is attached to this person's head. Now, has anybody looked at the small print in your mobile phone? It tells you not to have it anywhere near your body. The reason for that is because the antenna will fail FCC standards if it's actually against your body. there's been quite a lot of work done about men carrying mobile phones in their pockets and how it can do significant damage to their fertility, etc. So it was a bit of a worry, but that opened up my whole interest in these technologies. It was bizarre. It's a paradigm shift in product development. Most products that you see on the streets, your cars, your vehicles, well, not the new ones, by the way, but a lot of the vehicles that you see and everything that we've ever built in the past, we have basically, with this type of product development, have burnt the rule books, the standards. I mean, we may as well just have a bonfire. May as well go back to the jungle, because this is the law. Product development and law all intertwined. So where was the rationale to bring something is poorly designed as this to market? And obviously you can see this poor lady here. Doesn't look too pretty. Not when you know what I know. This is the point I made before about the levels of radiation. On your left here, these are the US standards. It's a thermal value, basically cooking. I call it a cooking value. They call it a specific absorption rate value. Basically, as long as you're only cooking a little bit, they believe that you're not really in danger. But these are the international standards. That's the US standard there, this European standard. And these is what the phones emit in test. So you've actually got them strapped to a dummy head with a bit of water in, but they're at distance. And distance makes a massive difference. Absolutely, you only need to move a slight way away from a product and you will see a significant drop-off in the radiation impact. So anybody with a mobile phone, whenever you actually use it, or when you ring someone up, always keep it away from your head. Once it makes a connection, make sure it's on hands-free. Don't put them up against your head. These columns on the right actually show the radiation from these mobile devices when next to the body. All right, you see the significant difference. And these are the regulatory standards, and all of these mobile phones breach these standards. A significant risk. And people really just don't know about this. So unless you start looking around and investigating for yourself, you'll find that there's not much data in the mainstream media. The mainstream narrative sort of, they keep you away from this type of information. Now, I put this in today because I had it on my notes and I thought, no, I'd rather have people see it. This was at an international conference in London in 2008. Professor Paolo Vecchio, he was the chairman for ICNIRP. And what he said about the exposure guidelines. These are the guidelines, by the way, that we are currently adhering to. The thing that we're talking about before, that other device, we'll not give it its name, that other device fails all of these. Because strap your head. Those are the SAR values are on small amounts of time. And this guy said, what they are not mandatory prescriptions for safety. They are not the last word on the issue. They are not defensive walls for industry or others. Unbelievable, because that's exactly what they are. The industry say this is safe. They say cooking values are safe. What they do, what ICNIRP have created is a total disregard for the hundreds and hundreds of published peer-reviewed papers that show that this radiation has a significant detrimental biological effect well below the current thermal, I call them cooking values. I mean, this is unreal. This is absolutely unreal. These are products that everybody uses in their homes. You've got people who just do not understand it. In the mainstream media, you don't even get a mention. So it is pretty upsetting, to be honest. This is an image of children's heads, and the reason why I've brought this out, actually, with the Gateshead Council issue that we had, the head of dosimetry at PHE says that my assumption, Mark Steele's assumption, that this microwave radiation has a more deleterious effect on small children is not based in science. It's pretty interesting. This is the IAEA. Obviously, PHE rely on them for their evidence. This is the same device. One's a child's head, one's an adult's head. It's a simulation. Does that look like it's the same damage? It doesn't to me. Now, when did we ever get a scientist, because they get, I'm sure they get pretty reasonable salaries. When did we ever pay a British scientist to tell lies to people? It's absolutely appalling. I mean, this is basic physics. You've got the head of dosimetry at PHE stating that my assumption that this basic physical law is not real. And this is what local authorities are relying on to roll this, well, the bit that we're really going to come here to talk about, out on what streets. You can see the thermal impact there. I mean, it's not pretty worrying. How many people know that? Right. Now, let's talk about military side, because it's a bit that I'm really interested in. This, you'll see these sight systems. You'll see these two chaps on the right here. Protective eyewear. I wear it all the time, and I wear it for a reason. I wear it because there's a lot of microwave radiation kicking around. I spoke to a scientist in Ireland, and he said, "Well, it cannot enter your eye because the wavelength's too high." I mean, are these people mentally retarded? Do they know what it actually, how that whole thing works? Obviously don't. The reason for this is some of the sophisticated weapon systems are on the battlefield. So where you have, sight systems like this, you can see the mechanical sight. And that's to protect the military. These guys, you'll find all the special forces guys, you see them operating in FOBs, always got protective eyewear. It's one of the reasons why you should always wear a helmet as well. And it's also one of the reasons why we're seeing significant people who've operated on the battlefield coming back with neurological disorders. Battlefield interrogation equipment. The same signals that, they're starting to think about rolling out around the place. These things, these signal systems, like I said, military, it's not an insurable space. It's the battlefield. There's a lot of bullets kicking around. So there's no real insurance. There's no real safety regulations in and around the products that are made that these guys, as you can see, are protecting themselves from. And this is what they are. This is phased array. Now, on the left, this mammoth, it was one of the first phased array signaling systems. And as you'll see, it's actually got a 200-mile footprint. But that was just after the war. This product posed a significant risk to Allied bombers, because obviously you could see them. Not only the fact that it could direct planes, spotlights, and fighter aircraft towards incoming bombers and aircraft. It also posed a risk to the air crews, because obviously it's a phased array system, and it actually focuses radiation. So instead of inverse square law, as you can see, we've moved on quite a bit here. This is a thing here, a lot more sophisticated. We moved on quite a bit. It's off the front of a ship. Well, it could be off the front of anything. You see them on the front of planes, see them on the front of ships, see them on the front of tanks. This is all part and parcel of interrogating the battlefield. It's battlefield interrogation equipment. But what people really don't talk about, it's also a sophisticated weapon. You can subdue, control your enemy. And this is most certainly what's responsible for the significant increase in military casualties. You know, a lot of the guys coming back committing suicide. A lot of people just can't handle it. And the reason why is because nobody's told them that they've actually got a brain injury. Nobody's actually told them that there's anything wrong with them. What they do is they go into the doctors and the doctor goes, what's wrong with you? There's something wrong with you. Yeah, they have some of those tablets. And instead of actually understanding what the real problem is. Now, this picture on the right is a simulation of a phased array antenna. You see the 4 antennae here? Very similar to these. That's only 4. The more antenna you have in an array, the more you can focus this. This is really important. This is in and around. So from an antenna, a normal antenna, you see what's called inverse square law. So you see the dissipation of the radiation over a very short period of space, as I spoke about before, in the mobile phone, and having it a little bit further away from your head makes a significant difference. This is completely the opposite. By off-stepping with some of the clever software systems, you can off-step the signals, and you start to do this beam wave, and you can start to steer it. You start to use it like radar, like that. All right, and that's why all this new sophisticated radars like this. You know, we used to have them on the top of the ship where they used to spin. Well, what you actually do, you see them like this, either on a canopy. You'll see a little flat piece on the front of the boat. I'll show them in a minute because I've got some pictures of them. There you go. These are some graphics. These are phased array radar systems, but they're weapon systems also. So you see them here. These are just graphics. See it spraying it out. This is in reality. This is the real deal. That's it actually in deployment. I don't know what it's doing there, but it looks as if it's trying to shoot something out of the sky. You can actually focus these weapons so they can be pretty sophisticated, and they are battlefield interrogation equipment. It's just that inadvertent weapons. Are they really? I'm not really sure. Can't really say. And here you go. Let's get to 5G. 5G uses similar systems. This is part of their neural networks. They're inadvertent weapons and actually are weapons. That's most certainly what they are. In this, I picked this graphic up from a company. Basically says they're going to serve everybody. Well, to be honest, serving people up with signals in certain quarters means something completely different. You see these small cells here? That's focused radiation. So unlike the current systems that you have, these are potentially very, very problematic. And as we all know, let's define 5G, by the way, because I've heard a lot of people say, a lot of experts, in fact, try and explain to people what 5G is. 5G is not just about higher frequency signals. 5G really means more. It's more 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G. And where 5G gets really interesting, you're starting to look at these phased array signals and higher frequency signals. So it's basically billions more antenna, billions more RFID tags, because this is where it really gets pretty interesting, because you have to understand, what is the reason for this? Do you need a faster signal? You'll not get a faster signal. You get in between that signal and your mobile phone, believe us, and it'll kill you. It's not about faster data. I know exactly what that is. It's a weapon. That is a weapon. Now, when have we ever had our own governments roll out weapons on top of us? Has anybody heard of that before? Because I'll tell you what, they're really outside their comfort zone, because we've just found out. This is absolutely unbelievable. You've got government ministers rolling 5G out all over, and these MIMO, these large cell systems all over the country, hundreds of thousands of them, moving them into people's streets, small signal systems. And the reason why they believe, because I think, you sometimes think, are people really that stupid? Somebody knows, because I know, so somebody else must know. I know a lot more people in this room now know. People might think I'm mad. Because they did when you first told them. But this is 5G making its debut in South Korea. It's been used as a weapon. Now, anybody that knows anything about weapon systems, testing them on porcine, it's a bit of a, you develop something because, pigs are like humans. If you cut them up, have a look at their organs. Now, this is somebody possibly telegraphing or somebody just making a mistake. I'm not really sure. But these are phased array. This is 5G. 5G is phased array. That's the big difference. It's more of everything else and phased array. And this is it here, used to attack wild boar. This was in Bloomberg just a few weeks ago. Great, because I can tell you now, it's a weapon. And here's in Gateshead. These are phased array antennas, 31,875. They all work in unison. They're illegal. And a 25 milliwatt transmitter, just put that into context. It's on 100% of the time. You can see this one here, that's totally illegal. The manufacturer even says that's illegal. Should be several meters away from a human. The maximum I can expose you to is 1 for 6 minutes. He's on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Obviously, there are distance from people's homes. We've got nosebleeds, we've got miscarriage, we've got all sorts of issues going on. We've seen a total collapse in the flying insect population. We've seen a total collapse in small birds, sparrows, etc. And it even gets even worse than this. They've got 31,000 of them across the whole of the area. Each one's got about 8. The manufacturer says got 5 to 8 kilometers. But that's only as an inverse square law transmitter. As a phased array transmitter, it's something completely different. I mean, you could actually fire it off the moon. So these are totally unlawful. The current design falls outside of IEE standards, and that's in a town near you. Because a lot of people have these designs. Obviously, they think the people in Gateshead are thick. It's probably because they've got an accent like me. And they didn't think we'd notice what that was. I didn't at first, I must admit, until I had a few neighbours knocking on the door bleeding from the nose. And then I thought, nobody's stupid enough to put an antenna, a telecoms antenna on an LED streetlight. And I was wrong. They did. Small flying insects attracted to that light within the first couple of meters, and they are attracted to these LED streetlights. It's an annihilation event, and that's exactly what we've witnessed. We've seen a total annihilation event. The pollinators, something protected under law. Obviously, the council are completely denying it, and obviously they would, because it's a crime. It's a crime against humanity. One of the very interesting things about these transmitters as well, it's at the first square meter, you've got 307 electron volts. You charge air, oxygen at 13.6. Air, it depends on its constituency, but it's roughly about 34. So you can roughly see at a 10 meter square block around there, you're positively charging air. Now, you're talking about before about Bernard Shaw. Bernard Shaw, I'm sure he mentioned something about gassing people and, doing it quickly. Zyklon B. We've got one of the largest Orthodox Jew populations outside Israel, in Gateshead. This is going to gas them, but it's not going to be quick. We're going to get lung cancer, breathing tract cancers. Children are going to get breathing tract cancers. It's going to be quick. It's going to be humane. Not that there's anything humane about Zyklon B, but I can tell you now, this is going to be worse. This is a bigger crime than the Holocaust. And this is Gateshead Council. Gateshead Council, and I'll show you in a minute, I mean, it's quite funny. This was in 2017. Gateshead Council, testbed for his 5G revolution. It's in the Chronicle. This is NECA. This is these Quango, non-elected Northeast didn't vote for that, did they? These are total out-and-out quangos. And they're behind this. At a recent, I did a lecture at Northumbria University. I was invited there by a guy called Charles Sellers to do a talk to a number of academics, lecturers and students. And at that lecture, the guy for the central government's 5G rollout in the Northeast, he was going to come and tell me how great it is. And I was going to stand up and tell him how it's an existential threat to everything that we hold dear. And there was another guy who was going to do the thing about encryption, because there isn't any of that either. And anyway, he didn't arrive. He'd been told by central government not to stand on a platform next to me. Now, this is Gateshead Council. Don't know if you can read this one, but we're basically the Save Us Now party. The people that are telling people about this were conspiracy theorists. This was run in the local paper, the local BBC. Absolutely disgusting. A totally anonymous document, no name to it, stating that we're conspiracy theorists, saying that, you know, a really interesting thing, no risk. The World Health Organization and National Toxicology, the PHE, Protection Health England, have turned around and said that there's no risk. No risk to these street lights, no risk at all. Shame that the council, because this is what PHE have said. Could damage eyesight and disrupt sleep. So no risk. Now, Protection Health England have said that there's a risk to these LED street lights. I'm pretty amazed. Absolutely bizarre. These are the people who say that my assumption that it's radiation's not risky. So the LED street lights must be really dangerous. And there you go. This is recent. Street lamps, Exeter research, not the only one, there's a few. We always knew this because from the weapons perspective, I know how significantly hazardous this radiation is. And I know how the higher frequency radiations are problematic, and the reason why the military use here 560 nanometers in their projectors. Street lamps could be triggering thousands of cancers, say Exeter research. Spanish say it does. MIT say it does. Harvard University have just done a study where they've showed that these lights actually increase cancer risk. Now what's really interesting, from an international legal perspective and international laws, if there's any confusion, because there might be, you might get some people at PHE that think these are safe, even though they've said that they're not. If there's any confusion about technology, then you must call a moratorium on it. If everybody's not sure that it's all right, these LED streetlights are rolled out all over. What's really interesting about them, the ones that are attached with these transmitters, if I was to pulse that light at a certain frequency, I can weaponize it. So I can take control. The one that we have, it operates on a platform called Zigbee. It's already been compromised. You pulse modulate that light at a certain frequency and get a lot of people to take a fit. Make them pretty unwell. Can you imagine? Absolutely bizarre. They also stated in that press release that the World Health Organization says that there's no risk. Now, I know the World Health Organization are probably on the fence with this a little bit. However, the recent NTP study, a recent study that's just came out of Italy, shows in fact that non-ionizing radiation is extremely risky. I know it is, because I worked on a bit of a spooky job when I was a young guy. Out of 16 men, there's only 4 of us still alive. We were exposed to high RF radiation in this particular project, and there's only 4 of us left. And these guys all died in their 40s, late 30s, 40s. I'm still alive. I think I know why as well. I was lucky my granddad had psoriasis, and I was talking to a nuclear physicist, and he said, because I was complaining, because I had these, I used to get patches on my elbows and on my neck, and he said, you want to thank the lucky stars. And I said, why? I mean, I don't know if he was right or not. It was just something that he said in passing. But as it happens, I'm still alive. He might have been. The press release was a blatant lie. It was an attack on a Democratic party. Save Us Now is a Democratic party. It's a registered Democratic party. It was an attack on this party here. They're totally in breach of parliamentary laws. What gives the authority in an area the right to lie, to cheat, to roll out a weapons system on its people, and then the people that are trying to, inform the public get called conspiracy theorists? Absolutely bizarre. This isn't the Great Britain that our forefathers fought for. Believe it or not. And this is her, right? This is the dystopian world of your local authorities. 3D mapping capabilities. It's a microwave radiation 3D mapper. It's exactly what that antenna does, phased array. It's currently a class 1 cancer-causing radiation. They're basically building you into a scanner, all right? And this is for the dystopian future where all your packaging in your fridge in here and your toilet paper runs out. It's got a small radio identity tag. And these transmitters pick it up. So in the future, what actually happens, you sit and you go in the fridge. That's if you're still alive, by the way. You sit and you go in the fridge, you finish your last can of beer, make sure it's special brew. You finish your last couple of cans and you come back in and up pops a special offer on your smart TV. You put the package in the wrong bin, by the way, it gets you an automatic fine. You'll get some daft sanction. Because obviously you're not being green enough. So they know exactly what you're doing. And here's a really interesting one. I want to make this clear to all of the security services that are listening to this. You're out of a job. Because this 5G, you don't need to have prisons, don't need to have the police, do not need to have any security services, because this can map and control everything. It can subdue. You could actually be in prison in your own home. They could put a tag on you, they could stick you in your own home. You wouldn't be able to leave the home because they could attack you with a weapon system. So this is the controlling mechanism of the future. And like I said, all those in the intelligence agencies believe you're out of a job. And the first thing I would do, if I was in control of this, I would target in your bed. There's no point paying your surplus to requirements. So consequently, they're first to go. So they're the sort of they're the architect of their own demise. Obviously, we've seen this in Gateshead, appalling. Total collapse in. This was an article in a paper in India. They've actually seen this since March 2017. Seen a total collapse in the sparrow population. That's what we're seeing in Gateshead. So we've seen a total collapse in flying insect populations and, well, wildlife in particular. Anybody that's got animals out, anything that's got any wildlife. Now, these have been in the Nationals. We know there's a total collapse in these insect populations. It's quite evident. You only have to drive up a motorway to be able to see it. But one of the things that we'll have to really be mindful of, all of these transmitters, this is the legal side of IC and IRP, not the phased array illegal ones. The actual exposure rates have only ever been tested against 200-pound males. So that means women and children are on the front line. And obviously smaller bodied insects. The headed dosimetry, like I said at PHE, doesn't agree with me. The epidemiological data agrees with me. The science agrees with me. We've only got a few idiots, a few educated fools working in these institutions who, by the way, are informing ministers. We pay these, I'll give them that Sunday name later on. We pay these people an enormous amount of money to advise ministers about policy. And unfortunately, I don't know where they get it from. Well, I probably do. Somebody's got that fist exactly where they need to have it because they're just puppets. And there you go. A sick and disabled workforce will benefit the economy. It's a threat to its viability. So, our workforce is sick. Mental health rates stratospheric. You've got the medical community scratching their heads going, I don't know what's happening here. What possibly could it be? Brain tumours. I don't know if you can actually see that. You can see the correlation. You know, this is the epidemiological data. Miscarriages in women, 300% increase when exposed to microwave radiation. Microwave radiation is extremely dangerous. It's not the thing that these telecoms companies have ever told us it was. And I'll tell you why. Because I always laugh. You get these people and they go, it can't be that energetic. I said, come down to the battlefield and I'll show you one. See how energetic it is and let's test one on you. This is a bit of a smoking gun. 30% increase in young women here suffering stroke. From the same geolocation, we've got a 15% increase in young men. Now, I know that body density is a bit of a protector. So obviously, you'll no doubt that on average, men's heads are slightly bigger than women's, and this is their only defense. This is the data that we're seeing today. And you see these numbers here? They're going to go like that. This is your 2, 3G. This is your 2, 3G epidemiological data. And obviously you'll get somebody who'll tell us it's something else. But where the smoking gun is with this, there's a differential between the head size. These are people from the same geolocations. You can roughly say they eat the same sort of stuff. In fact, the men probably drink far too much drink, and that would probably increase their number. So this is absolutely, in my opinion, this is what is causing this particular problem. I always refer to Martin. Martin's my hero, because obviously I know quite a bit about the terahertz range. I know how to manufacture things. Like I said, I'm an innovator and a businessman. This guy's a real scientist. He's got courage, because what this guy tells you, the non-thermal neurological impact shown in this highly cited paper, it's totally been ignored. The non-scientific, I don't call these people at PhD or others scientists. How can you be a scientist and just totally disregard all of the science? It's impossible. A scientist's main function is someone who can actually assess all of the relevant data, not just ignore it. You're not a scientist. You can get as many certificates as you want on that wall. If you cannot be straight with yourself, that certificate doesn't mean anything. These people should have those certificates taken off them. They should be in jail. And there you go. This recent epidemiological data confirms the very many published and growing scientific papers, the published papers, the cited papers. This is the evidence. I know this number is larger than this because I'm going to, I'll come on to that. We've got to be very, very careful about the mainstream data. I was actually at a meeting in Teesside Hospital, James Cook, where I was talking to some brain surgeons about the development for head-up display systems as it happens. And we were chatting away and I said, the increase in brain tumours, and this guy, one of the leads at this particular hospital, said, well, I've never seen any risk, any increase. And I said, you've not seen any increase? I said, well, that's a bit bizarre, because we're seeing increases across the world. I said, what are you trying to tell us, that the genetics of people in the northeast aren't like they are across the rest of the world? And he went, no, he says, as it happens, he said, when I first started, I should do 2 operations a month. He said, I'm doing 2 a week now. So that just tells you that, his first defence in anything like this, and I think we see a lot of that, we saw it with Hillsborough, with the police, everybody shuts down and, don't tell anybody, let's keep our mouth shut. Dementia is now the biggest killer overtaking heart disease. Government's already telling you, they're going to take your house off you. They want your house, your property, your wealth, and they're going to give you dementia. Because these microwave radiation signals, you already suffer short-term memory loss. I can tell you now. I ring people up from all over the country and I'm on a chat and I'll tell them all about this and they'll go, how do you know? And I'll go, well, you're suffering short-term memory loss. So you can get the picture. So, you know, we know that this microwave radiation is not safe. And what we're most certainly sure about is 5G is most certainly not safe. And what we really need to do is start rolling it back. Start getting these signals back into cables. There's work there. There's money, there's work, and there's better technology. I mean, we're technologists. I've got some ideas about how to fix it. I'm sure there's millions of people out there who know how to fix it. It's laziness and it's greed. Easy for me to stick a transmitter somewhere and fire a signal over here instead of going and employing a load of guys to dig a hole and put a cable in. Cabling's better. It's more secure. This is your smart meter fiasco. Absolute disgusting. I mean, this is DEC. Obviously, these are advising government ministers in policy, putting smart meters out. Now, I think the figures around, I think they said something in the region about 11 billion, and then there's been some press release about maybe 20 billion. This is really, it's causing nosebleeds. I mean, these are all images of blood in vitro from 3 different subjects, and all 3 detrimental biological effects on blood from smart meters. And your governments want to roll it out. What is it, 2020? We've all got to have one or something, is it? Something like that. Absolutely unbelievable. And also, let's put aside the health impact for a second. What about the critical infrastructure? You've got 7 million of these people, 7 million people in the country. Well, 7 million households have been duped into having these in. Mainstream media have basically told them it's a good idea. The BBC, absolutely disgusting. Every time they put them on, it's the best thing since sliced bread. I must admit, they did, because of a few fires and one thing and another, I did see that they'd done something in Watchdog about people having a few problems with them. However, not enough. And the most significant risk, and I say this because obviously there's people who are listening to this video and they're listening to me, and obviously they're what I call the other side. I'm telling them, this is treason. This is treason. Because whoever's behind this, it's an attack on the country. It's an attack on our economy. It's an attack on the country. But this is an attack on your critical energy infrastructure. If I take over 7 million of these smart meters, just think of havoc I could play. And the operating systems that operate on, oh, by the way, Theresa May, it's no real encryption. Just to, Snooper's charter, it's no real encryption. It's illegal. So there's no real encryption. Not that these are really well encrypted anyway. I mean, you can get any, well, not anybody, but you don't have to be that clever to be able to hack into them. Anyway, let's go on a little bit more about the health effects. Medical community scrabbling to try and work out 300,000 people lose jobs over mental health every year. What sort of impacts are on business? So a business guy gets a guy, trains a guy, next minute he's mentally incapacitated. It's not very good for the economy, is it? Crohn's disease seems to be going up a bit there. These are all detrimental impacts on the economy. It's like somebody's actually having an attack. You're getting the start of feeling that there, that we're under attack. You will do by the end, believe us. Anybody see that? I mean the horse. That's 5G. 5G is a Trojan horse. Absolutely. It's a centralized data gathering, illegal system It's going to interconnect everything, your homes, your smart devices. I mean, it's basically subdue and put those guys at GCHQ out of a job. They just haven't worked it out yet. It's a very sophisticated surveillance system. And as reported recently by GCHQ and the head of military intelligence and the Ministry of Defence in regard to smart meters, because this is the connector to the smart meters so they can come into your home. It's critical infrastructure risk. Now, here's an interesting one. The US military, who've a little bit further down the road with this, they've now worked out that their full WIN-T battlefield interrogation system has been compromised. This is the NSA being hacked. And in this bit of documentary evidence, this general here saying they're going to have to decentralize. While we are still carrying on with the madness. So they're decentralizing because they've worked out that any sophisticated attack from a foreign power, you could basically cause an absolute load of havoc. Always thing close to my heart, trees. Secret contracts. Ian knows, mentioned it a few times about the contract for Sheffield Council. Criminals, that's what they are. These authorities acting totally unlawfully. And I'll explain to you in a minute. These are secret contracts with these companies to chop down all the trees. If you've seen the research document from Surrey University, to get 100% of 5G in, you need 100% of trees down. So we've got secret contracts with authorities across the country that destroy and protected trees. Sheffield's just one town. In Gateshead, there's a number of trees where they've cut them back so hard, protected trees, they'll probably die, and then obviously they'll fit within the contract to be removed. So you cut them hard back and they'll kill them. This is a humanitarian crime. We are all entitled to live in an environment where these things make it better, make it less toxic, clean the air, and guess what? Put the carbon dioxide underground. So what's the plan here? What is absolutely going on? Because that's what trees do. The Victorians planted trees for a reason. There was a lot of industry, and what they realised was they didn't want to have a sick workforce. There's no point training people. This is, the Victorians, there's a monetary reason for trees in cities. It was the reason why they built parks in the centre of cities, in towns, in villages. It was so that people could get fresher air. These trees can filter out toxins, and obviously there's a number of different aspects to actually having trees in and around our cities. Are we really going to let them all chop our trees down? We're going to stand back and let what's happening in Sheffield. And what's really happening in Sheffield, which is really interesting, and Ian knows only too well about this, if you mention 5G, you get bored. You get bored, you get taken off that. Anybody that talks about 5G, persona non grata. Now, this is what 5G, this is another one of the arguments for 5G. Right? This is autonomous vehicles. Because obviously the interlink, and it's not just about autonomous car vehicles, it's about drones. We all watched that video yesterday where the little drone swept up quickly on someone and blew their head off. Well, those drones are real. It's not just a film, they're real. It was part of a DoD defense contract. So they're real, and what actually ties them all together is those small antennae outside of your bedroom window. Because without those antennae, without them small antennae, closer proximity, they can't geolocate themselves. absolutely useless. I've got some ideas about some weapons actually to knock him out of the sky. I'll tell you about it later. But here's a really interesting thing about this. This one here is blew up. You've got a significant hazard materials issue here. Obviously, this was on a motorway. This material from these lithium-ion batteries, and it all depends how charged they are as well, if they're really well charged up. Now, if I was going to hack one of these autonomous vehicles in the middle of London, make no mistake about it, I'll make sure that's fully charged. So you've got a fully charged, you've got 2 or 3. What about 10? What about 50? What about blowing them up all over our cities? So we'll take a few of these. I'm a terrorist, for instance. Just making that up, by the way. It's just to prove a point. You actually take control of a few of these. You take them into a cityscape and you actually attack our critical infrastructure. This is treason. This is absolute 100% treason because they know that these have already been hacked. They've already been compromised. We see it here. Right? Team of hackers. There's no encryption, no real encryption. Team of hackers take control of one of these, run it into a street in London, Oxford Street, and blow it up. This is like a dirty bomb. I mean, absolutely. I don't know where they get them from. This isn't this technology is just totally. The people who are putting the plans out. I mean, I spoke to the guy at Department of Transport. They've got this thing on their website, and it says autonomous vehicles are safe. They're going to save a few lives, I think. And I rang them up because I like ringing them up and just being cheeky to them on the phone. And I said, these LiDAR systems you've got on the car, I said, you're saying that they're safe? And, well, they're not. These are LiDAR. They're basically of a battle tank. It's the same battlefield interrogation systems. You'll have phased array in the front here somewhere in there, and this is a LiDAR. That's a class 1 laser. So what they say is it's eye safe. They're not eye safe. Right? Collimated light's not eye safe. Right? Even though it's a class 1, it's pretty hazardous. And obviously you've got a few of them there. So that tells you straight away that that's not safe. And the problem that you've got with other vehicles, so let's say one of these guys comes up behind you on the road. They're allowing them to test them on the road, by the way, today. You've got 3 mirrors in your car. You might even more. This directs this class 1 laser and the radar into those mirrors directly at your head. So we're currently allowing them to test these on the roads today. The radar systems, the phased array is normally in the front of the VW. You can see there's a little plate, and it's a phased array signal. So you've got the radar systems, the signal systems. This is them here. Increasing the toxicity levels of radiation on the road. Now, I know that the Department of Transport, God love them, they obviously want a few of these. That's a problem. 1, to a pedestrian, to somebody in a town. And if you had 20 of them on Oxford Street, how many cars do you think there's on Oxford Street at any one time? 50, 100, 200? So we've got 200 cars, all emitting this type of radiation. You can see how toxic the environment's going to be. You can see how people are going to be falling. Pacemakers, BMW did an article. Their research guys found that the radar, the parking radar systems, so these very, very small power density, not like this thing at the front, but these small parking radar, anyone walking past with a pacemaker stops them. So they had a few issues with that. Now, obviously that's just one vehicle. By the time you start to put a lot of these, you can see that the toxicity level on a motorway, Any vulnerable road user, people on bikes, motorcyclists, all at risk, anybody with mirrors, you've increasing the power density from the laser. It's absolutely crazy. These things haven't been thought out. Well, somebody might have thought them out. Guy with a little white cap, a little monocle on and that. Because believers, I mean, somebody's behind this. I don't think so, by the way. I'm going to be serious. I think what's happened, a lot of this equipment is directly off the battlefield. And somebody's had to build a factory, and obviously you've got a load of this stuff. Well, what better way than to make a little bit more money and put it on Civvy Street? Because I think that's what it's really about. It's always about the money. It's always about the cash. And that's one way of, because to be honest, do they really want to kill everybody? Somebody might want to, but do they really want to kill everybody and not have any money themselves? Because really, if you kill everybody or you make them all ill, then you haven't got an economy. So there's going to be some arguments about this technology, but what I can most certainly tell you, there's a lot of people with resources and money. When they find out what's really going on here, we will most certainly get a lot of support in what we're trying to do, you know. 76 gigahertz. Do they really know what that is? If anybody gets stuck, you know, with my accent, just shout out. Don't understand. These signal systems, everybody's seen this picture before, boiling frog. Well, that's what I feel like. It's a way of actually killing a frog. It's an experiment that's been done a few times where you actually just increase the temperature slowly. The frog just doesn't jump out and dies. And that's exactly what's happening here. We started off with 1G. You know, these signals, like I said, aren't exactly safe. We started off with 1G in 85, then 2G, 3G, and at the same time, we started to see significant epidemiological data showing that there was some harm. Everybody just ignored it. Everybody started getting sick, neurological disorders, etc., 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 Crohn's disease. And now we're coming into this absolutely crazy. There's no one out there can actually tell me that there's any economic benefit at all. Forget about the human, you know, I mean, I'm not going to say forget about the humanitarian thing. It is absolutely appalling. But let's appeal to the people who think that they're making money here. They think, because every time I hear the BBC talking about 5G, it's fantastic. We're going to make a fortune. We're going to be the leaders. We're the leaders in the world in 5G. I'll tell you what, we'll be the leaders. What will be the leaders with the economy down the hole. This will smash everything. It'll kill everything. It'll kill absolutely everything. The toxicity levels, and you know what I say that 6G is? Genocide. That's what it is. Because the multiple billions of those antennas increasing that the toxicity in air, that'll kill everything. It's already killed all the small pollinators. And I'll tell you now, we're next. This really gets scary. I know I said before that you thought you were under attack. Well, this is going to just put things into perspective of where we really are. Everybody sees that number there, 60 gigahertz. Well, that's a attenuation in air for O2. It doesn't travel very far in O2. So what it means, it gets stuck in O2. Now, if I was to put some energy in there, in this signal, 60 gigahertz, quite a bit of energy, by the way, off a phased array antenna, I can split that covalent bond. Now, if I split that covalent bond, I've got a lot of oxygen atoms kicking around, and then what they do, they attach to that, and you get this. That's just a simulation of an O3 ozone, 50 parts per million. It'll kill everything. They're messing around with this at the moment. You've seen it in the press about them going up and using these higher frequency waveforms it's not what all 5G is about. 5G is about, like I said before, more, but it also gives them the capability to produce frequencies in and around this. You're messing around with life, basic life, and this could absolutely kill everything. Now, can you imagine this to your enemies? So we're building a kill grid across the country. It's gone to encryption, and they want to raise us waving the flag and want to have a go at the Russians. It just sounds absolutely bizarre to me. So they built a weapon. So the back door's wide open, and they're pretending that they want to have themselves a war with somebody. And so that, you know, everybody's not totally and absolutely depressed by now. He has the fix. I think this is the greatest opportunity for like-minded people, people like ourselves, who think a little bit more than let's say, the man in the street. The guy who basically, it's not his fault, he's just being lied to. You know, I mean, I can tell you about light and pulse modulation. I can actually, you can condition people by what they see. So LED screens are really quite interesting and help with that. So you can actually condition people in a way that you want. They can follow you on social media. What I want to say to people as well, use social media and use the internet in a very, very limited way. It's their battle space. The people that are behind all this nonsense, that's if they really know what it is. Their battle space is the internet. So your Facebooks, your social medias, use them in a very, very limited way. Ian said something interesting before about how many hits he gets on his YouTube. I've got no doubt he gets significantly more. But what it's there to do, it's to actually put your head down. What they don't want is for people like us to believe in what we're doing. They want to put you into a vessel. They want you to stop you talking to people. I was talking to a lady there yesterday, and she said she was working on some project, and she got very, very despondent about some of the attitudes of people within our own organisation. And believe you me, they are there as actors, you know, to cause this sort of disruption. Anybody that does anything, and we've got a guy in Gateshead who's doing a fantastic job in getting the story out. Facebook have just pulled his whole thing down because he's doing it in a sophisticated way where, you know, he's quite clever on social media. But what that means that we have to do is take it to the street, take it to your barber shops, your hairdressers, the coffee shop. Tried to stop the coffee shops before. Look what happened. Didn't pan out very well for them, did it? So the sun is rising and waking humanity from their sleep. Now, the reason why some of this symbology, if you don't know what it is, we're going to steal it. We're going to use it for what we want. All right? We're going to use it against the same people we believe, we perceive, are the people that's behind the destruction of the human race. Right? We're going to use their same, because they believe in it. They see the power in it. They see the power in symbols. We're going to use those symbols against them. Because with their power structures, right, they'll see that and go, Christ almighty, where are these kids from? That's who we are. We are humans. We are humanity. And we're going to use everything in our power. We will use every trick in the book, because believe us, we're fighting for our lives. It is incumbent on everybody here. And also, we have the law on our side. These weapon systems rolled out on top of us are actually an offence. They're illegal. And that gives us some power there, because we have a contract with the state apparatus as it is today. The authority, we pass over our authority to them so that they will look after us. That's the main sort of premise. Well, you can see that they're not. So it's time to get our act together. How are we doing there? Well, I think all I can say is thanks very much for coming. It's been a great, I hope I haven't depressed everybody too much. But believe us, this is the fight back. They have given us a 24-carat gold runway. It's about time we took our plane on it and took these criminals, took the country out of the hands of these criminals. Thanks.
Outstanding, Mark. And, you know, I absolutely concur with Mark's observation. You know, this is an opportunity. And I made that same observation about the fracking issue. And I said in 2013, you know, this attack, primarily on the north of England, was an opportunity. It was an opportunity to get people, communities in the north of England to come together. And what has been so successful is not establishing an NGO, not establishing a national structure, but building local community groups, you know, that are highly networked, but are totally autonomous and independent. And fracking covers 30% of the country, so 30% of the country, or a significant chunk of that 30%, have got onto the anti-fracking campaign. The anti-fracking campaign, in my opinion, was the nursery. It was the nursery for this, because this covers the whole country. And you know, I had to smile, and then somebody actually did pick up on it, but in my morning broadcast the other day, I'd actually just read that morning that the Isle of Wight had put in an application for funding to be a testbed for 5G. So I put out the observation that any prominent resident of the Isle of Wight, it was an opportunity to get out and lead from the front and get the community to challenge this, because the precautionary principle, which has always held dear in science and in politics, the precautionary principle, in other words, if something has an element of risk, then you have to determine whether or not that risk can be mitigated or not. And if it can't be mitigated, then you don't do it. That precautionary principle, under the current philosophy of corporatocracy, has been pushed aside. Yeah. And basically, it's a case of, we can make money. What's the likely collateral? Oh, well, it doesn't really matter. And in North Yorkshire, where, of course, I've been resident for much of the last 18 months, on all the police vans now, it has dementia-friendly. So I asked one of the inspectors there, I said, does that mean that, you know, if you see somebody wandering around the streets looking lost, you take them home? And you know what? He hadn't got the first clue what it meant. It's just pure PR, but it's part of this psychological conditioning that the levels of dementia in society, we already know is increasing, but it's going to be increasing exponentially if this technology rolls out. Sure. So this is a tremendous opportunity. And I know that obviously Mark will be addressing this, and I might just chip in, on his workshop tomorrow afternoon. So, and I know that, I'm pretty sure, Max is going to build on this, because what we're seeing here is the microcosm of the macrocosm. Because this isn't just being rolled out in the UK, it's being rolled out across the world. Mm-hmm. And by the way, the other observation on trees, Network Rail announced that they are in the process of culling 10.9 million trees in this country. Each tree provides enough oxygen through photosynthesis for 3 people, let alone what it does in terms of air purification and, of course, the water process. Yep. So, this is an assault, an absolute assault on humanity. But it's the gift, because whilst not everybody's going to pick up this cause, and of course, 90% of the people probably won't take an interest anyway, but that doesn't matter. It's the 7, 8, 9, 10% of people that we can get to participate, because they do actually realise that this is an existential threat.
Well, one of the things I'd like to mention to everyone, this is a businessman's nightmare. You haven't got a business. What I'll most certainly say, anybody who has any expensive wine in a cellar, these transmitters will turn it to vinegar. They will also, anybody with some priceless artworks, you could go down to You know, your gallery and the paint can come off the canvas. You know, I mean, fancy going out, you buy yourself a nice Rembrandt, you go back, you've got yourself a Francis Bacon. You wouldn't be too happy about it. But the reality is, these multiple transmitters, you can start to see resonant frequencies, you can start to see harmonics. They can go anywhere. Everybody's seen the image of the bridge where you start to see it wobble at the right frequency and then it just collapses. You can do that with just about everything. Concrete, brickwork. This will attack absolutely everything. And when they get these, you know, these multiple numbers, we just do not know. Some of these experimental waveforms, the total broadening out of the spectrum, we just do not know how dangerous this is going to become. But make no mistake about it, we're going to stop it.
We are definitely going to stop it.